Welcome to Recovery Rockstar. My name is Melinda White. I am a person in long-term recovery. What that means to me is that I have not had to use a mood or a mind-altering substance since December 28th of 2011. The gratitude that I have from that is something that I can't even put into words. What I can say is that recovery most definitely is a process. It's not an event. And I have forever gratitude for individuals who have stepped up to show me the way, the resources available to continue on that path, and also the ability to be part of the solution when we look at addiction. This episode is going to be slightly different than some, as my goal in this episode is to highlight some of the resources that individuals use on their path to recovery so they can get a more fulfilled life in all areas of life. We look in the state of Vermont right now, especially since we are dealing with COVID, that we have a significant housing crisis. And then I also know that we have beds available in recovery residences for individuals who are new in recovery or just getting back on the path to recovery. And I always like to touch on a bit of a journey of recovery. And for this month, I'm going to highlight just a little bit of my journey, as the people I'm going to be interviewing are going to tell us a little bit more about what can be available for people who need support. I had gone to Philadelphia Teen Challenge Women's Home in 2010, and I lived there for 13 months. And it felt like I was going to be signing away my life, going away for a minimum of a year. And the reality is, what I had the opportunity to do was to build a foundation. And in the beginning of a recovery journey, the most critical thing a person can do is focus 100% on their recovery. We often say in various groups and meetings that having that first year, your full-time job is your program of your recovery. If I had the ability to do a little more, maybe work part-time, so be it. But the reality is, if I didn't invest and commit to that foundation that doesn't have tons of holes and eventually crash later, which I also had experience with prior to, that eventually any of those things I put ahead of my recovery, like my relationships, my employment, my pets, anything I put ahead of my recovery, I most definitely will lose if I end up going back into active lifestyle of addiction. So I'm really grateful for my experience living in a recovery residence, which provided me with safe, supportive, substance-free housing, amongst other women who were also seeking that same path to build a strong foundation. There was accountability, there was strict discipline. And although I would hear of what some of the rules were, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to follow them, what I would continually have to ask myself is this situation really harder than living in active addiction? And never once did I think, oh, it was easier to be out there on the streets and doing what I was doing. So I'm extremely grateful for that ability. The beautiful thing about recovery residences is often that people are living there. They have different lengths of time working on their program. And I can say I've learned from my peers more than I've learned from anyone in the world, because they understand what it feels like to be consumed by your addiction, to feel those bottoms, to be governed by the physical cravings. And as a team and as almost a family, we have that one common bond that we don't want to die of this disease. It's very intimate to share with people that we've never met. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to highlight recovery residences as well as outpatient treatments. In our last episode of Recovery Rockstar, I had interviewed both Peters, Peter Mallory and Peter Espenshade, and we are talking about Recovery Day at the State House, which I think is a wonderful annual holiday. And that's coming up next week as well. So our goal is really to make sure that everybody knows, now that we're in a world where most stuff is done virtually, the opportunity to attend Recovery Day at the State House is easier than ever for individuals who couldn't previously drive to Montpelier and physically take part. So I strongly encourage people to go online to Recovery Vermont and to sign up and register to attend Recovery Day at the State House. It is free of charge. The more the merrier, to learn more about recovery, to hear from individuals who share bits and pieces of their journey, and to also learn about the most critical resources available to people who need a little bit of support, especially in the beginning of their journey and also towards the end, because we say the opposite of addiction is connection. I couldn't believe in that more strongly than I do today. I also know that this pandemic can make it challenging for us to connect, but we can be creative. And if there's anything that we can do as people is stay driven on the solution. And if we don't see a solution in way, then reach out and call somebody or find one. But don't be afraid to take that next step to stay committed and to make sure that we're not doing this alone, because we can't do it alone. So I'm just extremely grateful to have the guests that we have today. The first thing I'm going to do is just ask them to introduce themselves and what they do. And then I'm going to ask them a few questions so everybody can learn a little bit more about the recovery residences, as well as the outpatient program that serves Franklin, Grand Isle, Chittenden County, Brattleboro. I mean, we cover the state, and it's amazing that we can provide services, love, and support to the people that reach out to us. So I'm going to start first with Bianca. So excited you could join us, Bianca. I will, full disclosure, say how grateful I am to be working with two amazing women. It hasn't even been that long, and yet it has been so powerful, so exciting, and the hope that I have in moving forward is just huge. So Bianca, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much, Melinda. I'm very excited to be here today. Thank you. I'm definitely nervous. My name's Bianca Blaikner. I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor and a licensed alcohol and drug abuse counselor. I am currently the director of clinical services for all of Phoenix House, New England, Vermont programs. I'm also celebrating a year next week of being the president of the Vermont Association of Addiction Treatment Providers, and I'm also serving on the board right now for the Vermont Addiction Professionals Association. So I am all about recovery work 24/7, and that's how I'm engaging in it right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bianca. And Bethany, Thibault, I would love to hear a little bit about you and what you do.
Well, thanks, Melinda. So my name is Bethany Thibault. I'm the Operational and Administrative Director for the Phoenix House, New England, Vermont RISE programs, which is our transitional living programs that are located throughout the state.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bethany. And to our viewers too, you will hear the combination of Phoenix House in New England and Phoenix House Health and Recovery Solutions. And we'll dig in a little deeper about what is the difference, despite the fact that it is all one organization. So I'd like to kind of hop into that a little bit and ask Bianca to tell us a little bit about like the history of Phoenix House and what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So Phoenix House was founded in 1967, and we were once a large nationwide organization. And back in 2019, we were lucky enough to become our own segment of Phoenix House, and we're called Phoenix House New England. So we have about 19 programs right now throughout New England, in Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island. And in all 4 states, I think we're serving all levels of care. And in Vermont right now, we have 5 RISE programs, and we have 2 outpatient programs, and one of those is an outpatient spoke, which we'll talk more about.
Awesome. Thank you, Bianca. And then when we hear Phoenix House RISE, that's already come up a few times. And of course, I've talked about recovery residences. I'm going to ask you, Bethany, what is the RISE program?
So the RISE programs are transitional living programs for people in early recovery or that are transitioning back to the community from incarceration. So we have 2 contracts with the state of Vermont and with the Department of Corrections. And so we provide support, accountability. We are a peer governance model. So we really encourage people to get involved in the recovery houses and really be a part of establishing a really close supportive community within the houses. We have 5 programs throughout the state. 4 men's programs in Brattleboro, Bellows Falls, Barre, and Burlington. And we have our 1 women's program, which is in Brattleboro. So,
That's awesome. And I love how when I'm hearing you talk about these residences, it's completely consistent with what we're hearing across the state. The language used is safe, supportive, and substance-free housing, and how critical that is for individuals who may struggle and have, make a bad decision and not want to harm the rest of the people in that location, and also want to get the accountability and support. And I think we as humans are resistant to accountability when it's first being presented to us. However, when we have made a decision, an individual goes into a recovery residence, by choosing to go, despite what the feeling is, that's that commitment that I want a better life. I want to make better decisions. So I know for me, when I was at the Teen Challenge, and I've used the example previously where I had gotten some discipline hours for something that wasn't actually my job and I didn't do it wrong, but I learned not to speak up and fight back because I had to learn how to deal with an unfair circumstance in a safe setting. I had to learn how to handle conflict and handle challenges in a healthy way. And I remember in the beginning, I would hear one of my counselors say, well, I'm glad you're going through a hard time. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's so mean. And yet, no, it's because she cared enough about me that she wanted me to learn as many valuable lessons during that time as I could. Because as we get out, and I often say, life is not fair. It's like expecting a lion not to eat me because I'm not eating him. And that's just not how it goes. And we've got to be very realistic that things will come up. And it's not about those challenges, but it's more about how can I take the next right action, do the next right thing to not amplify the problem, but to get stronger and develop perseverance in handling conflict down the road. So I love you also mentioned about the peers in the house and how they're able to support each other. And that's a key piece, is building those strong relationships. So one thing that I want to touch on, and I spoke with both Peters about it in the last episode, is something called VTAR, which is the Vermont Alliance for Recovery Residences. And that was built off NAR, which was the National Alliance for Recovery Residences. So the state of Vermont is extremely fortunate to have the Vermont Alliance for Recovery Residences, which is certifying residents in the state of Vermont. And I'm going to ask Bianca, do you know if we are in any way connected with VTAR, the Vermont Alliance for Recovery Residences?
Yes, absolutely. So we just applied and got certified in all 5 of our Vermont Rise programs.
That's awesome. And with VTAR, that's something I did mention in the last Recovery Rockstar episode, because I am on the board of directors, and Peter Mallory, who was part of the interview, is our chair. And by having VTAR in place, it helps to strengthen recovery residences and build awareness amongst each other, and also provide that safe and supportive housing. And again, just to highlight that in a day and age where we are faced with a housing crisis, on top of a pandemic, on top of people struggling with addiction, what better solution is there than a recovery residence? So I've made a point in the last few months to really reach out and encourage people to look at those. Each residence often comes with some kind of a fee. However, there are scholarships available. There are ways to do it. So I really would encourage people to reach out and learn more about how you can access a recovery residence, what that looks like, and don't let the financial piece stop you from it, because I can most definitely say that I was not floating in the dough when I needed to go someplace, and they helped me find a way to make it work. So super excited that in Phoenix House we have those recovery residences. Bianca, can you tell me a little bit now? We had mentioned Phoenix House Health and Recovery Solutions, which is our outpatient program. Can you explain a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in August of 2020, we have created this new outpatient spoke program called Phoenix House Health and Recovery Solutions. Dr. White and team, including Melinda right here, have joined us, who were previously at Hope and Recovery. And we had about 400 plus patients transition with Dr. White and team to Phoenix House Health and Recovery Solutions. And we've continued to operate outpatient spoke. We're completely telehealth right now, but we're serving Franklin, Grand Isle County, as well as spreading into Chittenden County pretty quickly as well. So we're also providing behavioral health services in addition to our spoke services. So we're trying to promote any kind of assistance that somebody might need to benefit their recovery or their mental health through these telehealth services.
I love it. And something that, I think I've mentioned in a few different episodes more recently is the fact that previously, in my own experience, I was working with the Turning Point years ago, and then with Northwestern Medical Center Partners in Hope and Recovery Clinic. And now at Phoenix House, having that opportunity to still have the flexibility to connect with people and that quote unquote meet people where they're at. That's been a very familiar phrase for anyone who gets training in this field. However, I had struggled, and I was verbal about it, that if we're going to meet people where they're at, we can't do it sitting still. Sometimes we have to get out there. And in my earlier start with Phoenix House, which hasn't been super long, I had that flexibility to go to the hotels in Franklin County where people are struggling with homelessness and placed in hotels, and to deliver food to individuals, to help deliver phone cards and quarters for laundry and whatnot. So when we look at, sometimes we hear treatment, and this was also something I wasn't familiar with until I got in the field. But when I would hear treatment, I would think medicine. And it's like, okay, maybe medicine can be a piece of it, but the treatment is the all around looking at the social matrix of the individual. And I love that we have the ability to do that with people. So that's where I'm going to say, ask Bianca to tell me a little bit about, why is it that you do what you do? It's not easy work, but why do you do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we're looking at the social matrix, the first thing that came to my mind is that, like, throw the term treatment in the garbage and just look at the idea that, like, we need to help people build a life worth living because we want to also have our own lives worth living. And I think that when I think about what I do every single day, it's like I do what I do to help people get what they want in their lives to continue living. And it's like when we're looking at people in recovery, and primarily I've worked with a lot of people like coming straight out of incarceration. So it's like you basically are thrown out of incarceration and they say, good luck, stay sober, do a great job. And we're so fortunate to have so many recovery homes in Vermont. And I've been lucky enough to work at the RISE program in Burlington for, I've been with Phoenix House now for about 4.5 years. So I've never been limited in being able to do just what you said, like meeting the patients where they're at. Like there's not one moment where we haven't had the flexibility to say, okay, if this person doesn't need housing, you know, long-term right now, and they're just here for the month to stabilize, okay, this is what we're doing. And then they can transition home. So there's always been flexibility to meet the patients where they're at. And that's what I love about like what I do is that I don't want to live in a box. I don't want there to be one set way of doing something because we're all so dynamic and we need to honor that. So especially with the recovery process, like we said, like people are coming to our programs who are either new in recovery for the first time, all different ages, all different walks of life. Like you cannot predict what's, you know, who's going to walk through our doors. So when I get up every day to do my job, it's solely to say like, you know, how can I be of assistance to my community, to my patients every day? And I know that no day looks the same. And I know that we're helping people. Like, I think a lot of, like when we're looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we start with having basic necessities. We can't grow if we don't have food, if we don't have shelter, if we don't feel safe. So starting off like with every single one of the people that I interact with every day, I'm looking at realistically, like, how can we help you grow starting at the bottom? And not everybody comes in at the bottom. A lot of people do come in with a lot of resources. So we have to have the flexibility and also know the resources in the community well enough to be able to not fit them in a box, in the treatment box, like you're saying. There's so many different avenues that we want to help people walk down. So I'm very passionate about recovery. I think that the biggest thing for me entering this field is that I had so many models of addiction in my life, but I don't think I had one model of what recovery could look like. So I knew what incarceration looked like. I knew what it looked like to have a family member incarcerated. I never knew what it looked like for that family member to come out and do well and be supported. So I learned a lot about what it meant to cut the connection and sort of do that tough love thing. I never knew that isn't the answer. So when I entered this field, it was like being able to see that the connection, the love, the support that you provide for somebody, and then you teach them to provide for each other within the peer governance model of our supported living programs, like that's where the magic happens. It's all about how we support each other, not about how we cut each other off and say good luck. So that's how I ended up here, and that's why I do what I do every day.
I love it too, because like I said, I'm honored that I get to work with you because on a regular basis, I hear you say how you think and feel about things, how you approach things, and how exciting it is to have a team where it's all about the person we're supporting. And if it's something that's not in place or a system that might be slightly broken in a sense that there's not a bridge built for this specific area yet, we find ways to build that bridge. And our goal is to look at those systems and to work on filling those gaps so people don't fall within the cracks, because that does often happen. So I love your passion for how you take care of the individuals that reach out. It's so cool. And I know that Bethany also sees many miracles and experiences witnessing people's journey. So Bethany, can you tell me what keeps you wanting to stay in this field?
Yeah, thanks, Melinda. I don't know. I'm just so enthralled with Bianca's answer. I'm just like, so for me, to touch on everything that pretty much has already been said about, connection is the opposite of addiction. And I think in our society today, and you talk about systems, the biggest issue is disconnection and what happens when people get disconnected. And this is what happens when people are disconnected. So, why do I do this? I guess I love a challenge. I started with Phoenix House over 10 years ago. almost 11, holy moly. So, I mean, and I started working with women, which was, from what I hear, everyone's like, oh, you work with the women, whoa. And I'm like, yeah, heck yeah. And so it just, for me, it's a matter of making those connections. And, I got into psychology in college after, I lost my dad at an early age, and I had an awesome therapist who I felt like at the time was the only person that really understood me. And I was so blessed to have her in my life. And so that's why I kind of went into psychology. And then, I got into the study of the brain, and which kind of led me. So, I think like, oh, it's just by chance that I ended up, with Phoenix House, but it wasn't really. It was, I think, probably more planned out than I realized. But yeah, I think there are so many huge miracles that we see every day. We see these, when we celebrate a completion and transitions into permanent housing, yeah, those are huge miracles. But then there's the small miracles that we see every day where, someone gets a house position and learns how to be treasurer and keep, a lot, take account for the dues that are collected every week, something as simple as that. And we could be a 60-year-old man that's never done that before. And he's, so those are the small miracles that we see every day of people. We talk about rehab, but that assumes that somebody's coming from a place of, that where they had all these skills to begin with, and we just need to get them back there. But that's the reality is that's not really what we're doing. We're teaching people a lot of times things they've never learned, throughout childhood and throughout their young adulthood. And so it's, so there are so many different kinds of miracles. And we're just lucky to be a part of people's journeys, wherever they're at in their journey. And sometimes they're not quite ready for our, a transitional situation. Sometimes they need more support, and that's okay. We're always here. They can always come back when they're ready. But that's part of what we do too, is helping people find their readiness to really make significant life changes, because it's not easy, especially when, you are disconnected. So, so I guess that's kind of what keeps me going every day is, seeing people, whether it's in the grocery store, or I was at Walgreens the other day and a client I had, 9 years ago, came up to me, and, it's like, they are so excited when they see you and to tell you how well they're doing and that they're seeing their children, or that they regain custody of their children. It's just awesome. And that just keeps you going for however long it takes until the next time.
I love it. And Bethany, I feel like you did help to highlight also something I had in mind to mention, which is when we think about how do we achieve happiness in our life, and they call it the 3 Ps, the purpose, pleasure, and passion. And having that with what we do on a regular basis is what helps us stay healthy and happy and be a great example for others. And it does get challenging. I know, right, again, amidst a global pandemic that nobody was expecting, how is it that we continue to power forward and not only cope with that, but still be effective in helping other people? I'm a firm believer that where the mind goes, the person will eventually follow. So it really starts in the thinking. And we've learned that, people in recovery, regardless of which path a person takes, whether it's through a 12-step program, a faith-based program, a residence, treatment, outpatient, inpatient, whatever it is, we often learn that our thinking is what can help us moving forward to have a healthy perspective. Because it's not that life is difficult so much as it's my disability to accept it, right? So my resistance to life is what makes life painful, not life itself. And that doesn't mean that there aren't challenges, but pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And I know that for me, once I learned that I can choose not to sit in that victim role, so to speak, that this is happening to me, this, whether it be the weather, the pandemic, the, situation with family, friends, work, whatever it is, to have that healthy perspective that it's not about taking this personally. It's about looking that there's a bigger purpose for my life, What can I learn? Because oftentimes I end up meeting somebody who's going through the same thing, and then I can say, I've been there. And I heard you mention too that you're in that position. You believe you're in that position for a reason, for a reason bigger than you. And I love that, because I'm a firm believer that whether people believe in God and the universe and the force, whatever you want to call it, whatever created this earth, that I know for me, when I can accept that I have control over very little aside from my thoughts and my actions. I can't will it to be sunny and warm. I can't will it to rain. If I can't will people to think and feel a certain way, but what I can do is shift my thoughts to come to acceptance, which that therefore makes my actions typically less impulsive and more helpful. So, you know, as we get ready to wrap up, one thing that I typically will touch base on at the beginning of the show, but I wanted to talk about Recovery Day and the recovery residences, but I do want to still put in a plug for Narcan, naloxone, which is the overdose kits. And when I had touched on saying that we went to the hotels where individuals were placed who were struggling with homelessness, we also provided them with harm reduction packs, and those are, you know, called HRPs. They include the Narcan, they include gloves, lip balm, lots of different information about resources in the community. So I just want to encourage viewers to pursue that harm reduction pack. They're free of charge. You can get them through the health department. So just want to put in a plug for that. But as we get ready to wrap it up, a friendly reminder that Wednesday is Recovery Day at the State House. So I encourage people to sign up, to register, to attend. It's a phenomenal event that is going to be so much easier for everybody to attend. And my last question to both of you, if you were to just kind of summarize, why do you think recovery is important? Why do you think, you know, recovery services support is important? What would you feel that is? And I'm going to start with Bianca.
Okay. I have a hard time saying this quickly. I think it's just seeing, I call it magic, but what it really is like seeing what adequate support, and to reuse the word connection and love, what that does for the success we see people have in recovery. It's incredible. So I think it's really a matter of, we all deserve support. I think that you can hear the mascot. You're going to see a picture of him later on in here, but
Goose.
If you can hear my dog barking, yeah, it's like I'm trying not to be distracted. So that's, yes, I will say it's just, I see every single day that people are able to find the amazing life that they want to be living through the support that they receive.
Love it. Thank you so much. And Bethany, for you, if you're just to kind of summarize the hope in working in the field, what would you say?
Yeah, I think hope is a great word. And I think seeing people in their authentic, you know, in really their humanness. And I think recovery is important because everyone has so much to bring to the table and so much to offer and so much potential. And I feel like we're losing a lot of people who could contribute so much to this world, and so much beauty and creativity and love. And I just think it's great that we get to see people in their authentic selves. And I just want the whole world to see them that way. So, yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much, Bethany. And you know, at the end of the day, there's nothing that's more powerful than love. And love is an action, right? It's a decision and an action. Sometimes it can be a warm, fuzzy emotion, but the reality is it's a decision and an action. And people who choose love, which is showing kindness and respect and care for others, it always comes back to us. So with that, I just want to thank everybody for watching. I am so excited that we're coming close to the Recovery Day at the State House on Wednesday. And I encourage people to reach out, learn more about the recovery residences, learn more about the various resources that are available in your area, and especially with telemedicine, it doesn't matter where you are in the state. So reach out, get connected. Love you all, and see you all next time on Recovery Rockstar.